Well, hello, ladies and weebs. All right, cheers, y'all. I'm gonna do this fireball. Tell me you don't know how to drink from a plastic bottle. How do you swallow and drink? Oh, it's so cinnamony. I need to be way more drunk. I need to be way more drunk before I do fireballs. Gotta wash it down with some more whiskey. Dude, have you seen the little clip of fucking Asmongold drinking water? And this degenerate rat human drinks some water, and then he goes bleh, bleh, and washes it down with some soda. Let me pull up the ranking now. This is a continuation of a ranking that we've been doing for the past, I don't know, how long has this been going, this ranking thing? It's been like 3 years maybe? Boom. So these are the ones that I think we have on the docket. We have Adventures of Elliot, we've got Wu Chang, we've got Star Ocean, then we've got Subnautica, the Tomb Raider trilogy, with the caveat that I didn't play the third one. Oh, I forgot to do okay, let me cut. Okay, this will be the cut for the... Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to be ranking some videos. That's good enough. It's good enough for my videos. Anyway, then we also have Crow Country, Breath of Fire 3. Oh, I should get some music going. Next up, we have Cassette Beast, Green Hell that I've been playing with Kineko, Final Fantasy IV, Ghostwire Tokyo, and then Joan of Arc. So we're going to be ranking these games based on this difficulty criteria right here. Let's review that real quick. We've got vocab, which includes archaisms, jargon, expressions, and hard synonyms. We also have dialect density, meaning how frequently do you find things like osakaben, or I would consider robots a dialect now. Robots are their own dialect. And then we've got kanji density, dialogue density, which is basically just how much Japanese are you going to encounter throughout the game total. Furigana, whether or not it has it, made up words, dialogue audio, length of the game, and then convenience. We've got our dialogue log, font, save spots, dialogue pausability. These are some of the main things for convenience. So we've got Adventures of Elliot, Millennium Tales. This is straight up, this is your average as it gets B tier. From what I saw of Adventures of Elliot, it is incredibly normal Japanese. It is possibly even, I think it's low B. The reason is because there's not really that much archaisms or jargon or expressions or hard synonyms. I mean, the jargon is basically what you would expect from any JRPG, which does mean that it has that kind of jargon. It's drawing from a similar pool of vocab, you know? And maybe it's just because I'm so used to it now that I'm not rating it that high. But I think that if we're playing games for difficulty and are evaluating them relative to other games difficulty, I think that the jargon in this one is not very hard. I think it was all pretty much straightforward. Dialect density, didn't see too much, but again, I only played the demo, so it could be more. I'm not totally sure. Kanji density seemed very average. Dialogue density, I mean, the dialogue density is heavily inflated by your companion saying the exact same shit over and over again in your ear, fucking chirping about, oh, there's a treasure chest nearby, or oh, you should use a shield every time you get hit by an enemy. Try using your shield, dumbass. Easier than FF10 since it pauses on each line. That's true, yeah, actually. That's so true. FF10 doesn't. That's right. They patched it so you can turn her off. Oh, okay, interesting. Because I remember people were complaining that the reduce companion audio or dialogue was insufficient. And I kind of noticed that too, because I also turned her down, and I was like, man, she's still going. She's still telling me about all of the interesting different colored keys that I'm encountering and stuff like that, you know? Made up words didn't seem like there was much, and made up words to me, and I think Moobles is the one who like suggested this, or at least I don't know if suggested but brought it up as like a thing. To me, this is not like new names of kingdoms or names of characters the way that I believe Moobles was intending, but it's about like moves that you like, for example, techniques or moves that use wild combinations of kanji or amalgamations of words thrust together where they normally wouldn't be and only exist in that game, right? And are thus very difficult to read and interpret when you come across them. And most of the time these words do have furigana, I would say, but there's a certain FromSoft game called Elden Ring, which did not have a lot of furigana, despite having so many of those types of words. It's like tons of items are called like, you know, I don't know, like spirit mist shackles or something, you know, and you're just like, what the hell when you encounter it. Even though there's a lot of like, there's like new kingdoms and like orbs or whatever in Elliot, that does not mean that they are like made up words. They're just names of characters and places. Okay, dialogue audio. There is audio, which also makes it even easier because it's even easier to, like, if you can't read the word, someone will say it a lot of times if it's the actual dialogue portion of it, which decreases the difficulty quite a bit in my opinion. Length of the game, I don't know. This all seemed pretty easy. I think low B is honestly, if we said high C, I wouldn't complain. It seems like it's pretty straight up. In this dynamic though, it is kind of like B is sort of our midway point because we got 2 tiers below and 2 tiers above, but yeah. Let's move on to our next game. Hold on. We need a new... Wu Chang has prompted a new criteria for difficulty that we have never had before, debuting a new one. Font size. I turned this game's font size up to the maximum that it could go. And this shit was barely legible, dude. It was so tiny. And it didn't help that the font was like, I think it was like maybe slightly below average in normal readability. Is not good. Is not good. Bring your microscope, indeed. I'm starting to feel the booze a little bit. Speaking of games with made up words, I know, right? Speaking of made up words, let's talk about China. We all know that the final boss of like dialogue difficulty in Japanese games is if they are from China or Taiwan, because they have so much. You're gonna see kanji thrown in there that you would never see. You need to be Uda Senpai to know what they are. Like wild stuff, or just maybe Chinese. You would perhaps know. But like crazy hard kanji. In this case, there's a lot of like Bukkyo stuff, because there's a lot of like Buddhism. There's a lot of like Chinese, other kind of like Chinese influences and ways of thinking and philosophies involved in it. And so it's very, very reminiscent of another game that we played that I also talked about this exact same issue and is also in S tier, which is Nine Souls. Another game made by, well, this was made by Taiwanese devs, I believe, and Taiwan #1. And I think that it is only appropriate that Wu Chang makes its way to be right here, and I'm gonna go ahead and say that this font size pushes it ahead of Nine Souls. Nine Souls did have a lot more dialogue, though. A lot more dialogue. Like, actually, maybe... I think actually I want to swap these. I think Nine Souls is still harder, just because the sheer amount of talking, and they both have like a lot of item descriptions that you can read that have tons of lore. But like Nine Souls not only has a ton of lore in it, but also the story is much more explicit, and there's a lot more exposition that's spoken by the characters that you have to read through. Also, I don't think Nine Souls didn't have any voice acting either, I don't think. So yeah, I think that I think it's above. I think actually it being right next to Kuon is also pretty appropriate, because Kuon is also difficult in that it has a lot of archaisms. They both have a lot of archaisms. Except the archaisms from Kuon, I guess, are a little bit more familiar if you've already playing Japanese games. So yeah, I think that it makes sense to put Wu Chang maybe higher. Yeah, jargon, expressions, hard synonyms. I mean, the hard synonyms are like 20 different words for samsara and stuff like that. It's really hard. It's really hard. So yeah, I think that's it seems pretty good as I'm looking at our dialogue here. As I'm looking at our difficulty criteria. Okay, let's move on to my GOAT, Star Ocean, Second Story R. Dude, this game is... I'm gonna stop. I'll stop talking about it. Now, this game is your standard JRPG. Everything that you would expect from a JRPG of its time when it originally came out, which I don't know when that was. Let me look that up. 1998. This game has a lot of dialogue. There's also a lot of like side quests and side missions and stuff like that. If you want to play it, because that's what part of this is, you can know how hard it is, right? If you want to play it, it's going right there. I think right next to Adventures of Elliot seems very appropriate. I'm going to put it above just because I am more familiar with it. I have had very little trouble with it. The plot has gotten a little bit more intense and political. Not political, so to speak, but more like military, where at the portion where I'm at. And so there's a section where there was a lot of military words that were like being thrown around a lot. And so for that section, I was like, okay, I was looking up some stuff about, tactical positioning and stuff. A lot of them were words that we've had before in other games that I just had forgotten. Vanguard Bandits also did that quite a bit. But this one also has voice acting in it for the majority of it. Like all of the main dialogue has it. Interestingly enough, there's an auto feature, and dude, the auto feature, if you are in a scene, like a side scene where there isn't any voice acting, that shit is so fast. There's been times, I can mostly keep up with it, but there's been times where I had to like stop it. And then another thing with this game is there is a dialogue log. And as long as you haven't left the scene yet, you can go back and look at everything that was said, and you can replay the voice lines. So super, super convenience in that regard. Honestly, that might even make this easier than Undertale. I don't know. There hasn't been really any weird dialects at all, other than like old man dialect. That's pretty much it. Very few hard synonyms or anything like that. The hardest part is just that there's a lot of cool stuff where you can like have characters invest levels into like different skills like cooking or biology. and stuff like that, which then lets you use other abilities or like crafting stuff. And dude, this game has actually made me enjoy crafting, because the way that it does it is that you only have to find one item. You just craft from one item, right? And then you're basically playing a little roulette to see which item you'll get from a specific pool based upon your level of whatever your skill is in that. And I can fuck with that kind of crafting, because I only need to find one thing to use. And then it's like you're playing a slot machine, which is also kind of cool. It's like you're hitting up the casino. So that's pretty dope. Anyway, as far as Japanese goes, below average. Slightly on the low side of average as far as difficulty. Let's move on to Subnautica. Subnautica, there is no dialogue audio in Japanese. There is some dialogue audio, but it is not Japanese. It is in English. There's quite a bit of jargon in this. But like, it's kind of similar to Outer Wilds in that it repeats it quite a lot. I'm not actually sure whether or not, I think that if you were to spend time reading a lot of the lore of this game, of Subnautica, then you would find that it's of a similar level of difficulty to Outer Wilds, probably. The difference is that Outer Wilds, you must know the whole lore, so to speak. Also, these games will make you fluent in Japanese in a week. How did you know the title of this video? Damn, how did you clock that? I thought that was gonna be so good. Most of the script is in the database pages. Yeah, most of the script is in the database pages for this. So if you take the time to do that, then I think you're in for it. I think it's actually quite hard. The difference is with Outer Wilds is that there isn't really a lot, like all of the database pages and stuff you're getting at is like the actual story itself, right? Is there. That's the whole thing. There isn't like a ton of like other database logs to look at or something. Like you have your little thing that you're making, you're piecing together, but that's more just to help you, like to point to you to where you haven't been yet and where you should go investigate further. It's more like a roadmap than it is a history of the lore, so to speak. So I think that Subnautica is actually potentially a harder game. I'm also thinking about this right now. I think I want to demote Outer Wilds. Not a whole tier maybe, but I think that the more I think about Outer Wilds, the more I think that the thing that makes me think it's easier and easier and easier is just that the pool of vocab that you're dealing with is relatively small, which actually makes it a fantastic game if you want to learn more physics words. I think Outer Wilds would be like possibly my top pick if you're like, hey, I want to play a video game and learn some more space and physics words and stuff through playing a game. Of all of these, I would say play Outer Wilds, because there's a lot of repetition in the vocab. And then also part of it is that it's a highly focused and specific and small pool to work with. So you don't have to like deal with that much variety. I think that I did not read much of the database logs in Subnautica, but because I want to rate it a little more fairly, I think I'm going to have it take the place of where Outer Wilds was, and I'm going to demote Outer Wilds down to here, to low A, because there's not actually much, like all of these games essentially have tons of other logs that you can read, or bestiaries, or like if you wanted to find the maximum hardness or difficulty of the game, you could. And we're basically taking like a general average. But the more I think about Outer Wilds, the more I think that it's like not, like it doesn't have a lot of those other features. Like what I experienced of Outer Wilds was pretty much its maximum difficulty as far as Japanese goes. Whereas with a lot of these other games, that's not totally the case. Like I didn't read a lot of the Lies of Piss stuff, which I love this game, but like there's a ton of stuff I didn't read because it's just like notes or item descriptions and stuff. But there's not that in Outer Wilds And that's maybe a flaw of the, I mean, by that reasoning, we could potentially put Outer Wilds maybe even lower. But I think that because it does force you to experience it at its like maybe most difficult, that's still good enough argumentation to keep it up into A tier. If that makes sense. Anyway, Kanpai. Fucking Gapik. Gapik. Monkey shoulder. Gapikos. So good. Alright, Tomb Raider. Tomb Raider, wherever Resident Evil is. I don't know if I was better or if Resident Evil, or if these games are easier, but they felt easier to me than any of the Resident Evils. There's maybe they're not. There's a lot of like notes and stuff in there. I don't think there's much difference between the two Resident Evils, other than that Resident Evil 1 is a pain in the ass to get a Japanese mod into, which does increase its difficulty. Difficulty criteria, convenience, has to mod it. Have to patch it in yourself. Have a highly specific difficulty criteria just for Tomb Raider 1. To me, this feels totally fair. Everything that I've said about Resident Evil, which is just that the dialogue itself is piss easy, and then the notes explaining the lore is much more difficult. I do think that with these games, you're maybe more incentivized to read all of that, because like with Subnautica, it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind, because when you find something that has a data entry, it just gets put away into this big index, essentially, that you never, literally, you almost never have to open it except to get some codes for doors and stuff. Whereas with these games, when you pick up a note, it like stares you in the face and it's like, bam, here I am. And then you're like, okay, well, you're presenting me with an opportunity to learn, and therefore I must. Ugh, woe is me. So I think that it's probably fine just here with all the other Resis and stuff. Very similar level of difficulty, I'd say. Okay, Crow Country. Super fun. I really like Crow Country. I think I was complaining a little bit about some of the mechanics of it, or puzzles, but that's just because I'm a scrub. Overall, the game was great. I don't remember the Japanese being significantly easy or hard. Let's take a look and see if we find in here. Now, we're not using the word count as like a very conclusive metric, because there are a lot of like times in which we're just like throwing words out there. But it is kind of an interesting thing to get a little bit of a reminder of what's going on when we don't remember. Hakaishi Boseki. We were just talking about that yesterday. I feel like there might be kind of Roll Ningyo, a wax figure. Bunkiten? I totally forgot this word. Bunkiten. Okay, so there's like a fair amount of like somewhat tricky words in here. I don't know that it's worthy of A tier. I think probably B tier feels pretty good. There's no voice acting. Maybe just above Deltarune. Seems pretty good to me. It's also quite short, this game. Maybe just below Deltarune. Relatively short. Okay, Breath of Fire 3. I think this is going to be this stream's first C tier, as far as difficulty goes. This is like very Musashi coded. Honestly, now I'm thinking of, I think Star Ocean belongs in C tier, largely because of the convenience factors. There's a lot of convenient stuff, like the dialogue log, that I think make this quite easy to get through. Yeah, I think that feels good. Breath of Fire 3, there's really nothing too much to say about this. It's pretty standard fare. C tier. It's not hard. It's mostly as straightforward as you can get. There's sometimes some like expressions that caught me off guard, but overall, pretty simple. Okay, moving on to Cassette Beast. This is the one we were playing most recently. Dude, Cassette Beast is a tricky little fuck. Cassette Beasts is a game that is translated, right? And you hear pretty frequently about like, oh, translated games are bad for learning Japanese because like there's sometimes weird stuff in there. And to be honest, I sometimes, yes, like totally agree. Like, yes, that is a thing that happens sometimes, right? And if you want to be sure that you're getting more like organic Japanese, or at least written in a more natural way, then yeah, like playing something that's from a Japanese studio makes a lot of sense. But I don't think that it's bad to. And I think that the thing that is different about translated games is not that if you are, it's not that it's necessarily weird. I think the more common trend than like having wrong Japanese in a translated game is that they are harder. Like I genuinely think that a game that is made in another language and then translated into Japanese is much more likely to be harder, even if the Japanese is like all fine and good. It's all attaru. It's all good. It's all kosher and whatnot. But it's just going to be harder because these translators are working with a fucking thesaurus, and like they're using all these other words and stuff like that that are totally not wrong to use, but they're taking a lot of like effort, putting a lot of effort in to make sure there's a wide variety. So Cassette Beast is 100% in that range, or in that category. I think that this is Sea of Stars level. I was wondering, like, do I go? Then I don't go low A with this, but I do think that it is higher B. I think it's probably Sea of Stars level with the difficulty, and that's mostly just surprising because like you might think, oh, kids game or whatnot, like it would be around here, and like these Japanese dev games, you might be like, whoa, wouldn't you think that the game made by Japanese people would have more difficult Japanese than like the one that's been translated into Japanese by like some weeb? And the answer is fucking no, dude. No. It's not. No. It's like definitely harder. Which makes me wonder too, if is that, do you think that's true backwards as well? The English that is made in English games, do you think that it's harder or easier than games that have been translated into English? Because the trend I've noticed with Japanese is that the translated games are harder, but I'm not sure if that tracks with English as well. I think if you're reading tons of stuff, it's not going to matter that much. I totally agree on that. Like, and the thing that, and I actually did make a Reddit comment about this one time. I think that I think that for the most part, the person translating the game has a deeper understanding of the language than the majority of people that are using a video game for language learning practice. Even if it's not 100%, it's 97% is better than your like 50% that you could do, right? There's still, or your knowledge in comparison to like a native Japanese speaker, right? There's still plenty of stuff you can learn from a translated game. And if you get good enough anyway to like play the game and understand it and stuff like that, I think either you're going to notice it, like some parts that are weird, or B, you're going to figure that out when you play other stuff. You know, you'll learn what is correct. You know, it'll resolve itself. Most of the time, a translator is going to be a native speaker of the target language. That too. Green Hell. I'm almost tempted to put this into not enough info because the way that I've been playing with Kineko is like I have not been reading a lot of stuff, but based upon what I've seen, there's no Japanese voice acting. I haven't been reading a lot of the notes here because I've been playing with Kineko and I haven't wanted to like bog down the stream, even though I'm sure Kineko would be happy to help me with reading and stuff. I've just kind of felt a little bit more pressure because I don't want her to feel like her time is like she's being kept waiting too much, you know. I think that there's not that many notes though. I think the frequency of notes is not that much. To me, this feels like it's C tier. Actually, I'm gonna go put top of D tier. I think this is pretty easy. All of the word pool is very small because like you're working with materials, right, for the game. There's like a lot of crafting, but like you're crafting kind of like the same shit again and again with the exact same other shit again and again. So it feels like maybe I'm gonna put a bottom of C. There is some hard stuff in there. Final Fantasy IV. This is going right next to, but slightly below, Final Fantasy VI for all the same reasons. It's easy. It's your typical JRPG. The version I'm playing does have kanji. The original version didn't even have kanji. The kanji does make it a bit easier for me to read, at least, because maybe if I don't know, like, there's probably like if I was better at Japanese, I wouldn't need the kanji as much or feel like the kanji is as helpful. But I don't know, maybe I would. Like, I don't know how a native speaker feels about having kanji versus not having kanji. I've never asked that question. Maybe that's a good question to ask. But where would I rank ReZero if I had to put on? Dude, ReZero would be it would be light novel. It would be way up there. It would be above N1. I don't know. Actually, maybe N1 would. I mean, because I finished ReZero, but I failed N1. I had 3 points. So I don't know. Maybe N1 would still. As far as like the convenience factor goes, it's you know, time limit. I don't know which would be harder, N1 or ReZero light novel, but it'd both be up there. Okay, Ghostwire. Ghostwire has a lot of the convenience features that we were talking about, like audio, a lot of there's pausability for the dialogue even, I think. Well, actually, no. It just keeps going. But it's like not that hard. There's lots of reading and there's lots of like Japanese mythology stuff, which is really cool, but I don't think it's that difficult. If Tado-san is still around, I'd be interested in hearing what Tado-san's perspective is on the difficulty of Ghostwire, because I'm tempted to put it in, just throw it in B and call it a day, but I think that one section that I was thinking like, oh, this is hard, was the bestiary. But that's like any bestiary. They're all like... But I think that I'd probably put this in a B, personally. The game's also not that long, and you're not forced to read that much. It might be easier than Omori, I think. Easier than Omori, harder than Expedition 33. That feels good to me. So Ghostwire Tokyo was recommended to me by Tado-san, because he was like, hey, this is really interesting, it's good, there's a lot of like cool Japanese mythology stuff and folklore, and it's like a pretty well executed game in general with like cool horror elements, and the gameplay is like pretty fine, you know. It's good. It's not blow your mind or anything, but it's good, you know. And so this is another one that I'd really recommend for particularly if you want to play a game that's like very Japan forward, because like obviously Dragon Quest is a staple of Japan, you know, and Dragon Quest 11 is a fantastic game to play, but it's not like this game that literally takes place in Shibuya, right? Shibuya, yeah, I think it's Shibuya, and then it's like everything's super Japan forward. So I think it's a cool game from that element too, of like being culturally very Japanese and very modern and past culturally Japanese. Kind of similar to like a Yakuza game, you know? But the Yakuza games I would say are way harder with the Japanese. And they're way longer too, with way more content. Okay, last one I would say that we're doing is Joan of Arc. So Joan of Arc, I don't even remember how hard this game, this game had hard Japanese. Let's consult the Slippy vocab list. How many words do we have total that we looked up just to get a ballpark? 360. Okay, compare that to like Ghostwire Tokyo. 295. Again, this is kind of a little bit suspect just because, you know, anything we look up, not necessarily game related, gets into this list, which is just nature of the beast. That's fine. I was thinking that like B tier. I think B tier is pretty appropriate for it. Honestly, I think maybe even just above Ghostwire Tokyo. And the main reason for that is that there is voice acting in this game, but it's only during the anime cutscenes. And what's interesting about that is that the anime cutscenes don't have any subtitles. So you have to listen real good, which is something that I like, but it's also something that is not common in games. Like most of the time with video games, there's subtitles just by default. Actually, dude, how often do you have games where you can turn subtitles off? I mean, I guess maybe it's a thing in AAA games, but I feel like there's just kind of like subtitles by default all the time, and that's like the expectation. But anyway, I think that like that is alone is maybe enough to eke it out just above Ghostwire Tokyo, and that feels pretty good to me. And to be honest, I feel pretty good about this list in general so far. I feel like if we're talking about B being kind of our average, since we don't have an F tier as far as difficulty goes, we have a duo tier. But this isn't to say that it's bad. Although I've heard that duo has gotten progressively worse because of its like AI implementation. But this is just because like these games aren't like, they're trying to teach you Japanese. That's why they're here. So if we're thinking of B as being like our average, I think this is pretty good as far as an average, as far as a tier list goes. Like these games do seem like if A is like they're just above average, and then S is like, okay, they're like particularly difficult, like exceptionally difficult. I feel pretty good about these. Honestly, Yakuza 0 I might even demote. Yeah, I'm gonna demote it. So I'm gonna put it right next to Like a Dragon. I think that the only thing I was pushing it into S tier was because of the Osaka Ben, but I don't honestly think that like the Osaka Ben is like that. Like, yes, I think that's good enough to say that it's harder than Like a Dragon, but I don't think that's good enough to say that it's belongs in an entirely new tier of difficulty. Even then, the dialogue and the cutscenes is pretty true. I think the only word that I remember not really knowing, like, was Itansha, which means like it's another word for heretic. There's quite a few of those, but yeah, it was pretty easy. Did I finish Persona 4? Funny you ask. Persona 4 was, I believe, the third game that I started streaming. I think the first game was Final Fantasy X, then 10-2, and then I think I started Persona 4. These two games took me like, I don't know, like a few months or something like that. Persona 4 The Golden took me over a year to finish. And 226 hours of playtime. Now, to be fair, the reason why it took me a year to play 226 hours was because I was getting so burnt out on the game that I decided to start playing other games while I was playing this one. I played Chrono Trigger. Elden Ring came out during that time, so I was playing Elden Ring. But it is, to date, the game that I have played the longest on stream. And it is still not even close. No other game has even gotten anywhere close. So that's it for this ranking video, everybody. Oh wait, I should do this with the thing. I gotta film my YouTube outro. So that's it for this ranking video, everybody. If you're interested in knowing about why these other games are in these positions, there's a link to the playlist that you can check out so you can watch the previous entries into the series. All right. Catch you later. Cut. Nailed it.